I'm very pleased to introduce today to the Ames, Kennedy, and Langley Group, Dr. Shelly Canright from NASA headquarters. Shelly is the manager for elementary, high school, and e-education, I saw, and I'm assuming middle school too in some way. Shelly taught elementary school many, many years ago. I won't say how many because she looks so much younger than I am. I knew her when she taught elementary school. And then she also served on a school board as a policymaker in Newport News, Virginia, before going to NASA headquarters. Shelly is a tireless worker and doing wonderful things now for many years for education, and we're very pleased to have her today. Shelly?
Can you all hear me? Can you hear me, everyone? Can you hear me? Okay, great. I can see Kennedy down there, and I see, I saw Langley, and over here we have Ames, so wonderful. I'm delighted to be here today and to talk with you. I also could see from Kennedy, I can see some of your computers, and I was delighted to see someone has Inspire up there. I had sent out in advance some flyers on some specific projects I was going to talk about or just highlight, and so I wondered if you had each received them, and I'm assuming you have, at least Kennedy has, as I see the Inspire flyer up on that laptop. So thank you for putting that up there, so I knew that you had that. What I'd like to do today is take you through a little journey or a story. I know my slides are about NASA Education Program, and I'm to give you an overview, but almost as important is to tell you how do we get to what we are doing and why we are doing it. So I'm going to begin by telling you about our key stakeholders and our influences, who influences what we do and how we do it. Of course, to begin with, it is you, the educator. As we learn what your needs are and where what we are doing might be able to best support you. But we have a honeycomb of key stakeholders. And as I share some of my slides with you today, you will see the influence of some of these key stakeholders. And who are they? Well, to begin with, there is the legislative and executive branches. You'll hear me mention Congress and the White House. That's the legislative and executive branches. We also are influenced by regulatory. Regulatory might be the Office of Management Budget. You'll also hear me talk about something called NSTC. And so they help regulate what we should be doing or also help give us guidance. A third group is the federal agencies. Later on, you'll hear me talk about how we're trying to work more closely with a lot of our brother and sister agencies as it relates to STEM education and learning what they're doing, what we're doing, and how we can make sure there's not redundancy and where we might find some synergy. We also have non-federal. Actually, there's a lot that goes on from the non-federal side that helps NASA understand maybe where we should put some of our efforts. And one of those groups is the National Academy, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a moment. And finally, another group that has a lot to influence what NASA does in education are laws, initiatives, and reports. So I call this my honeycomb. So as I go through my presentation to you today about our education program, the overview of it, just know that we are influenced by a lot of key individuals, key organization, and in some respects it's how do you make them all happy, whereas at the same time doing what we feel we should be doing to support you as the educator. So I'm going to go to my, I guess, can they see this one right now? All right, so just my opening slide. This is going to be perhaps one of the most colorful slides you're going to see. A lot of what I will talk to you today about might just be in bullet point form, and the point is just to kind of give you a sense of how we got to where we are right now and also where we're planning to go. So my discussion topics are going to be to talk about those key stakeholders, and I'm going to do it through mentioning a few key things that are happening right now that will influence what NASA is doing with you at this moment, as well as what we're going to do as we look out the next couple of years. I'm also going to do a quick highlight on NASA and some of the other federal agencies as far as where they are investing in STEM, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, education. And then I'm going to conclude by a quick trip on what NASA is doing in the K-12 STEM program area, looking at student opportunities, teacher opportunities, and then providing you with some NASA contacts. And actually what I sent out to be distributed to you really hits that third bullet. You should have received a presentation that talks about NASA's pre-college resources and might have also included a number of flyers that I will make reference to when I get down to that point. So let's start our journey. The nation that out-educates us today will out-compete us tomorrow. This was actually stated by President Obama in 2009 at the National Academies. This is a non-federal group, and yet he said that in 2009, and he's continued to carry that message through his term. In 2011, if you listen to the State of the Union address, you might have heard him talk about STEM. He talked about us increasing STEM literacy so that all students could think critically in STEM. He talked about improving the quality of STEM teaching so that the American students are no longer outperformed by those in other nations. And the third point in that speech, he talked about expanding STEM education and career opportunities for underrepresented students, including women and minorities. We also had something that came out not too long after the State of the Union. This is from Congress. So we've just heard from the White House. Now Congress is coming out also, and here they reauthorize what was known as the American Competes Act. Now a little history on the American Competes Act. In 2005, the National Academies released a report called Rising Above the Gathering Storm. This caused a lot of us to pause and reflect on what this would mean and what we needed to do differently. Congress put forth the first Compete Act. It was passed and signed into law by President Bush in 2007. Now, under this new administration, things have not gone away, and we actually see we are falling a little further behind, and so now they have actually reauthorized this act. It was signed recently, and there's a key provision in this law that states that there should be a focus on STEM education. The White House, in other words, what Congress said is that the White House should create a panel to coordinate federal programs and activities in support of STEM education. And they specifically called out in this act the National Science Foundation, the U.S. Department of Education, Department of Energy, and NASA. In this slide that you're seeing here, what's worth calling out is in this particular slide, what NASA is looking to do in support of the Reauthorization Act is the focus here is on the teacher and the faculty. What can NASA do to partner with other professional associations, industry, and academia, and other agencies? So if you think about right now, you are starting a 2-week period of a workshop. You also got sponsorships out in industry to go back and do more with what you're doing here in the next 2 weeks. This would track very much back to this particular thing, of what NASA is trying to do in its partners to support teachers and faculty. The other thing, though, that we're trying to do is to put the connection on the youth, because that's the end-all for us. And basically here on this slide, that's what it reiterates. And as we think about what NASA is trying to do, we are, from a nation's standpoint, trying to strengthen the future workforce, not just within NASA, but with all others that might be doing things with STEM, including academia, including other federal agencies and industry. We're also trying to provide our resources and assets and our exciting content to help attract and retain students in STEM, And finally, as part of having a literate society, what more might we be able to do with our mission to engage Americans in our efforts by building some strategic partnerships? Now, I mentioned under the National Competes Act that there was direction given that the White House was to put together a panel that was to help in further the coordination of federal agencies. This was the panel that was talked about, the National Science and Technology Council. This is actually a regulatory stakeholder for us. And under this, you can see what NASA is doing specifically with this group is we are now working towards better collaborations, not just sharing what we are doing, but how can we truly collaborate with other federal agencies. The other thing that this group is doing, called CoSTEM, is they right now are beginning to get their arms around what is the federal government doing and the federal agencies as it relates to STEM with their programs and activities. We have started this summer, I've been very much involved with this group and all my project managers in completing an assessment on our projects so that they CoSTEM, can start reviewing all of the education activities across the federal government. Part of what they want to see is where might there be redundancy, where might we have duplication that if we were better tied together we could reduce some of our costs and some efficiencies. Also, folks, let's be honest, this country has a deficit, and so we want to be sure that we are using the taxpayers' money the best way. And so the more we know about one another, the more we can work more closely with federal agencies and maybe do a better job and spend less in one area to put more in another area. The other thing that this group is doing is by August, I think it is, they are to have developed a draft plan. This is to be a 5-year strategic plan. This will be very important to NASA as we look at where we thought we were going to be going with STEM education and where we may need to revector, rescope, or rethink our direction. So what do we look like, though, as far as the federal investment in STEM education? This is data for 2009. Under this current review that's happening, they are looking at fiscal year 2010. And for us, just so that you understand, a fiscal year runs from October to September. As public schools, you probably run from July to June. So our fiscal year is October to September. So during this fiscal year, we did an assessment of the STEM education funding, and kind of interesting to see where most of the dollars reside that are being used for STEM education. And notice where NASA stands. NASA is 5% contribution to the federal government with STEM education. The big ones you shouldn't be surprised with: the National Science Foundation, education. The Health and Human Services is the National Institute of Health, and then you can see the other ones. But NASA contributes about 5%. Internally, though, if we look at by our mission directorates, you right now have come in with some funding by both the Aeronautics Mission Directorate, ARMD, and by the Office of Education. You can see how much of their dollars are put towards education. The Office of Education does contribute the largest share of that. Not only 44%, as you see there, but another entity under the Office of Education is Space Grant and EPSCoR. So for a total of about 75% of the funds that NASA does put towards STEM education, it is coming out of the Office of Education. I sit in the Office of Education, and my responsibility is the oversight and management out in the field of what's going on with K-12, particularly those things that are funded by the Office of Education. But I also have the opportunity to interface with all my mission directorates. That first one is the Science Mission Directorate. The next one down there is the Exploration Systems Mission Directorate. The third mission is the Aeronautics Research Mission Directorate. Again, we're funding for your workshop has come, and the bottom one is Space Ops Mission Directorate, which would be dealing with things like the Space Shuttle program and International Space Station. Our centers also have funds that they put together, totally about 5% across all 10 NASA centers, where they will do some center unique experiences and opportunities in the area of STEM education. So what ties us all together, because there's an awful lot that's going on? Well, we have two key strategic goals that all of those programs, our mission directorates and Office of Education, if we are to map ourselves to and demonstrate our contribution towards, it would be to two strategic goals. This first one is really about the workforce, ensuring that we have programs and capabilities that are going to help us not only to identify and cultivate but sustain a diverse workforce. And as I mentioned, this workforce is not just to NASA, but also to industry and academia. The other strategic goal is tied really closely to what you all are experiencing, is to share with the public, educators and students, what we are doing and ways that can, one, help retain, improve retention of students in STEM disciplines by providing them a full length of educational opportunities. Two, we also want to make sure that we look closely at strategic partnerships, both from a formal and informal. And by informal, we are talking about science centers, planetariums, that sort of thing. It might also be like the Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts of America. A third outcome under this would be doing more with the public. And the key word there is to engage them. This is not just about providing them with information, but how do we get them to actually participate in new ways? And that's where you may begin to see more of social media being used by NASA for the public. And then finally, under that fourth outcome, under this goal, is to inform, engage, and inspire the public by, again, sharing what we are doing. So this here, guys, is to really give you the sense of the pipeline that I mentioned. One thing that I hope that you will come away with when you finish your experience and you go back out into the field is that you should know where, if you wanted to do something next, you could find something to do. In other words, you should not find a cul-de-sac. You should not have this experience go away and say, gosh, that was nice, but now what can I do? I'm really psyched. I want to do more things, either for myself as a teacher or maybe to bring more to my students. Well, through your exposure over these next 2 weeks, you should be told a lot of different places that you can go, and I hope that part of what I share with you today and leave with you provides you with the stepping stones to do something further if you are so inclined. But the point of this slide is just to kind of show to you that we do have a pipeline. NASA has materials, resources, and ways to get involved at every age. We have the online NASA's Kid Club that has games and activities for early learners. We have Homework Help, which is an online for elementary and secondary students. We have talented high school students can apply for an internship at a NASA center. We provide lots of lessons, materials, research opportunities, and hands-on activities to engage students and educators in what NASA is doing. We also, in higher education, the program includes a focus on undergraduate participation in STEM research and education, trying to prepare our future scientists and engineers to enter the STEM workforce. We provide grants to universities to conduct research and to involve undergraduate and graduate students in aeronautics and exploration activities alongside the NASA scientists and engineers. Now, in terms of K-12 education, NASA has a focus now beginning in another fiscal year providing middle school level pre-service and in-service teachers with NASA-themed experiences. We're also trying to help students in developing foundational knowledge and skills. You'll find as you go through your 2-week experience, hopefully a lot of activities and experiences that you might be able to take back to the classroom to spark their interest in STEM and expose them to new career pathways. NASA field centers have specific K-12 service regions by states. You should become acquainted with who is that pre-college officer that you could go to following this experience, and at the end of this presentation, I'll give you some contacts to go to. So finally, NASA is research-based. We're about capacity building. We're about strategic partnerships and building a competency of learners, whether that be a student, educator, or faculty. So let me tell you where we're planning to go. So I said our fiscal year starts October and runs through September. So we are now completing our fiscal year 2011. In September, after you've returned to school, we are closing down this fiscal year, and we'll be looking forward to the next year. So in October, what might you start seeing from NASA? A couple key things. Here is just a short list of several educational activities that we're going to start focusing on. We will continue to support the White House and the administration and Congress to support national STEM improvement efforts. We will seek to do a better job in our coordination on what we're doing in STEM education with our federal agencies. Every state has a space grant. That's another group you should get to know. We want to do a better job in leveraging both our national, state, and local resources with the Space Grant Consortium. We have started, but we want to do further with community colleges in NASA research. Again, that whole notion of the pipeline. You can see that we look to do more in student internships and launch initiatives for our students. As far as educators, we will be expanding our educator professional development and pre-service preparation. One way we will do that as we start finding our belts being tightened budgetarily is we will do much more in immersing educators with NASA content via educational technologies and cyber learning. You guys are one of the mavericks out there right now as we look to how do we use the tools of simulation and modeling and cyber learning to do more with educators nationally. The last thing we're going to do, and I'll mention this a little further on, is we will continue the Summer of Innovation project, something that you too will be able to get involved in. So the key here, folks, is partnerships. As I said, we are tightening our belts. We will find less funds to do what we've done in the past, which means we will do things smarter. And to do that, we know that partnerships will play a very key role in what we're going to do. But it's not just partnerships for the sake of partnerships. We're looking to expand partnerships in a way that will allow us to be much more deliberate. Certainly there are a lot of people that want to have a relationship with NASA, and we certainly make a lot of what we have freely available for others to do things with it. But what we need to look at is where there are true strategic partnerships that allow us to do more nationally with students and educators that by ourselves we cannot do. So we are taking a very deliberate approach to our partnerships, defining specific benefits and outcomes. Also, it's just as important to understand how we systematically manage those partnerships, how we can leverage resources appropriately. As important is, as we go through these partnerships, do we identify there are some partnerships that are working out so well that it is worth trying to scale them beyond where we currently are reaching. And I guess the last one I would just mention is the one there on the bottom, because that again kind of ties into what you are doing right now. How can we build a deeper and wider bridge between NASA's innovative capacity? That's what the modeling and simulations is all about. How do we build that bridge with that and the type of teaching and learning in classrooms so that the students will have what they need to become more STEM capable? Again, this is not only where we're taking the modeling and simulation, but as important, you are a partner in this endeavor, and you will have a lot to contribute as we look at that particular bullet as we move along. So let me, I'm trying to be mindful of time here. Some final slides here to talk a little bit about student opportunities and teacher development. Again, this kind of goes along with what I've already previously sent out. I think you already have in hand. That will talk about NASA pre-college resources and some specific projects. The K-12 STEM portfolio can be divided into two main categories. There are those for students and those for educators. This here is just a quick description to say, what we're trying to do here with student opportunities is provide a suite of projects. Remember, we don't want any cul-de-sacs. That allows these students to be engaged at various levels and various depth and time with NASA as they have hands-on, as they experience things through the web, using some of our advanced technologies, our online communities, simulations, and learning games in ways that are both meaningful and also appropriate for the intended audience. You have several examples that I gave to you as flyers. I do encourage you to take a look at them. One is the NASA Explorer Schools opportunities for grades 4 through 9 for teachers to get involved. It's a gateway to a lot of exciting opportunities for your students. Take a look at that. Education Flight Projects offers a lot of different experiences and opportunities that you can get your students connected into. You also have a flyer on Inspire. If you are an educator who has students, you're touching students in the 9th, 10th, 11th, or 12th grade, please share this program with them, as it begins with an online learning community and offers them opportunities to have both a collegiate experience at a university as well as experience at a NASA Field Center as they go into 11th, 12th, and their first year of college. And for the teachers, we're trying to leverage NASA's unique content and resources to build learning experiences for you that you might then be able to use in a meaningful way back in the classroom. Just like the students, we're trying to increase our usage of electronic technologies and also look at ways that we can have sustained engagement, not just a 2-week workshop and you go back and we lose touch with you, but how can we have a sustained engagement of educators, building communities of practice between educators and NASA. And once again, you might want to take a look at a few that I have sent to you. The Endeavor Science Teacher Certificate Project right now is looking for teachers to apply through the 15th of October. If you want to do more with NASA content, earn yourself a certificate, this might be something for you. Bob Starr there at Langley could certainly talk a lot more about Learn, but at each of the NASA Field Centers we have the Digital Learning Network. So anyone at those NASA Field Centers could tell you more about the Digital Learning Network. And then finally, we do have the Electronic Professional Development Network, which is something that on an individual level, you can take some training in some specific areas when it's convenient. So let me close with, we are focusing on innovation. One key project that we are just starting under the K-12 that you might be interested in looking at a little bit further is the Summer of Innovation. I did send a flyer on that really provides a lot more of information. The key here, though, is that this actually was born out of President Obama's Educate to Innovate campaign, and this was NASA's response to that, the Summer of Innovation. In this one, we are trying to help providers at the community level in engaging students in meaningful ways. We understand the notion of summer slide, so how can we prevent summer slide but also intentionally have a bridge between the summer and the academic school year. Summer of Innovation is about that and so much more, so please take a look at the flyer that describes that more fully and visit this website if you want to know more. So in conclusion, here are some links for you to investigate. I have provided these links in some of the material that I previously had distributed to you. This tells you a little bit about what our pre-college programs are about. We do have, for every state, we have a service region, a NASA Field Center that serves that region. And so you should look up which center serves your state, find out who is the pre-college officer, and reach out to them. And here's just a few things. If there's one thing you might do as you leave your 2-week, if you have not yet signed up for NASA Education Express, please do so. You will be among the first to know when new opportunities for your students, for yourself, are made available, new products online, and so many other things that are happening through NASA education. So I will stop on that.